I'd like to speak about is Mr. Nicholas Porta. So what's that? Over there? Sure, I can go over there. Sure. It's very official. So on behalf of myself and Mr. Sight, I want to talk about some of the things Nick does here. He's certified in responsive classroom teaching techniques. He's our boys varsity soccer coach. He's our junior class advisor. He's part of the district leadership team, building leadership team, ruler team member, and is always someone who, as you are hearing, is doing. He's constantly doing lots of things. More importantly than the things he does is the person that he is and the way he leads our students. By example, high character, greeting people at the door each and every day, huge smile on his face, making sure every single child in our district knows how fortunate they are to be in this wonderful place and to learn from an incredible person like Mr. Porta. He works with our high school students as well as our middle school students, and he does it in a way with utter enthusiasm in everything he does. He is an incredible asset to our district for many, many, many years to come.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions? We have a motion to approve the tenure of Nicholas Porter. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? This is where we usually just torture. Anything? All in favor? Aye. Any against? Very good. Congratulations. Right.
The next person I need to speak about, since we're at a peak, no, I'm just kidding.
I can tell you where that was going.
So Mr. Miller works here at the middle school and also does an absolute tremendous amount of things throughout our building. He is part of our MTSS team. He is our resident tech guru, not only with working technology, but implementing it into instruction. I gotta say, since the minute we met Matt a very long time ago, working for BOE, he's coming in here to train us. We looked at him and we were like, that's the kind of guy we need here in Millbrook. He is the kind of person that will, from the inside out, change our culture. And he does that through data-driven instruction, through the best instructional practices. As a special educator, he just is an incredible co-teacher in the room. He is a great voice for his special education students and beyond just general practices of the best way to reach our students. Once again, like Mr. Porta, those are the things he does, but it's the person he is that makes such a big difference. Matt is the guy who, walking by his classroom, you'll hear the music on and the kids feeling good and they got their spaces. He's in the hallways at all times, bobbing and weaving with his neighbors, playing music and bringing that positive culture and vibe each and every day. And that's not just for the kids, you know, that's for me, that's for everybody he encounters. He is, again, an incredible asset, given a wonderful steal, very proud to many years ago and part of it. Thank you.
So do I have a motion to approve tenure for Matthew Miller, effective September 1st?
So moved.
Second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Very good, Matt. All right. So next on the agenda, we have three gentlemen that have joined us. Gary Sperry, supervisor, town supervisor, Tim Colopy, mayor of Booker, and Peter Dora, deputy mayor. Turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Barry.
You're welcome.
So as the president said, I'm the mayor of the village of Millbrook. I'm here with Gary Safari, supervisor of the town of Washington, and joined by deputy mayor Peter Doro. And in spirit, we're joined by members of both the town and the village boards.
On behalf of the residents of the village and town, we want you to know that we are all very proud of the accomplishment of the Lady Blazers basketball team and once again winning the New York State Class C championship in 2023.
Winning a championship is not just about one game or one moment. It's the culmination of countless hours of practice, the sacrifices made, and the unwavering belief in oneself and each other. The Millbrook Lady Blazers have demonstrated these qualities and more throughout their journey, inspiring us all with their commitment and dedication.
But a triumph of this magnitude does not happen in isolation. Behind every great team are coaches, parents, and supporters who have provided unwavering encouragement and guidance. To the coaches who have nurtured and honed the skills of these extraordinary athletes, thank you for your expertise, patience, and belief in their abilities. Thanks also to the parents who have been pillars of support, sacrificing time and energy to ensure their daughters' success, and to the incredible fans who have cheered the Lady Blazers on with passion and devotion.
As we celebrate the Millbrook Lady Blazers triumph, let us not forget the lessons that sports teach us. More than just a game, it teaches about teamwork, resilience, and the pursuit of excellence. It instills discipline, fosters camaraderie, and builds character. These young women have exemplified these values, both on and off the court, setting an extraordinary example for all of us. They have shown us that with dedication, determination, and a unified spirit, there are no limits to what they can achieve. May this triumph great achievements in the future.
Once again, congratulations to the Millbrook Lady Blazers, and go Blazers in 2024. And Peter, I'd like you to do that.
Presenting Coach Pete.
Certificate of Achievement, this award has been presented to the 2023 Millbrook Lady Blazers, the Village of Millbrook in the town of Washington. We'd like to congratulate the 2023 Millbrook Lady Blazers for going into the New York State Class C basketball championship and prevailing. Great effort to win against Randolph Varsity on March 19, 2023. Score of 59-45. Thank you very much.
Just give me 1 minute there. You know, these girls are the best kids in the world. I've already known. We came to one other meeting once before. And right now with finals and graduation, trips, stuff, it was hard to get a bunch of them back out here. All right. But they will appreciate this. I'm sure they get, see it, but very much appreciated. The 4 seniors, just so you know, they're probably the best, 4 of the best leaders in the school. The 4 colleges they're going to next year are RIT, United States Merchant Marine Academy, Coastal Carolina, and Emory-Riddle. And they're all honor roll students also. So
Great.
they appreciate stuff like this and appreciate the support.
Glad to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Al,
Oh,
Make your turn around a little bit. Aw. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
thank you, guys. All right. Consent agenda. Anything anybody wants pulled before we do a motion?
We could pull number 14. I just think my couple questions are more appropriate for executive.
Okay. Okay, so 14. Okay. Anything else? You have that. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Very good. All right, BOE spotlight is there for your reading. Now, related to old business, we've had a number of discussions about traffic and how to at least make incremental improvements to it. Both Mayor Colopy and Deputy Mayor Doro are here to give us some feedback on what they've done, what they have seen us do, as well as what they'd like to see us continue to do. And then later on, we'll go back through the capital project. We'll show you some of the things that we're at least proposing to do. So.
Thank you, Jerry. So in the village, we spent about the past year updating our village and traffic law, which was quite out of date. And through that process, we also do public hearings. And we went through the public hearing process, we received a variety of feedback, including regarding what's going on as far as pickup and drop off at the school. And we'd invited the president to a couple of those board meetings to have those discussions. We promised to come back with our assessment of what we saw and what actually has been proven, as well as what we think we could ask for, future improvements. So now I'll turn over to Peter to go through a couple of charts.
Okay. And they're up here, Pete.
They may be, you can't see it, so we're gonna run down. It's all gonna the screen to look at.
Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to speak. You might know about some of these issues already. So some of the complaints we received regarding Elm. There's obviously a lot of traffic during pickup and drop off. So on Elm itself, so residents have been complaining about their driveways being blocked, not being able to turn into their houses when during these times, as well as various sort of arbitrary no parking restrictions across from the school, which we have already sought to rectify on our end. And then on Alden, just the parking, not being able to park on the street during school days, people can't park in front of their own homes. And then, both bus and vehicle traffic on Alden, as buses are leaving Alden, and as well as the safety concerns around the buses on Alden. So those are the complaints we've received. Some of the actions that we've taken on our end, as I mentioned, we reduced the no parking on Elm to the last 48 feet before Merritt. We're posting signs around the bend on Elm, do not block driveways. We reduced the speed limit on Elm to 15 miles per hour within 300 feet of the school entrance. We painted new crosswalks on Alden at Martell and across from the school, from the grade school entrance. We've also reduced the speed limit on Alden to 15 within that 300 foot of school property. And also, as Tim mentioned, we have seen ourselves firsthand, monitors or other personnel being stationed at Elm and Alden to sort of help with traffic flow and pickup. And we also noticed that the gate is closed at the top of the hill here to route high school and middle school traffic to this new exit.
Yeah, so we've actually seen some improvements. We appreciate considering you guys have done. This new side crosswalk that you guys asked for, we put in on your property, but I think it was with the help of your administration there. And actually, I was happy to use. So I think those are some positive things. You also noticed the monitors out there on the street in Elm, helping get the traffic to flow quicker. So that's been very well. There are two quick questions I've got, as I said to the president earlier. These are for your consideration. In talking to the resource officer about some of the violations we've seen about cars parked illegally on school property, as well as on the street, which is our problem. The officer said to me that there's problems with the control signs that are not enforceable. They can't write tickets, and he said there's something required to be done, probably by the school board, similar to what we had to do in the village to make them enforceable. And I would just ask that you follow up and consider what that is, and help the resource officer out to be able to actually ticket people if they are repeat. Which is the thing that we did in the village, that we've found people that are repeat offenders on the streets. And initially it was because our laws were not up to date, and then we fixed that. And so now we're going to go and be more enforceable. With a warning to start, but this repeat offenders are going to actually start ticketing.
Sure.
All right. So that's a concern. And the second thing that we got as far as feedback from the is it would be very nice, and it's a request that all the bus traffic to be routed in and out of the new entrance. And I know that you're already doing that for the middle and the high school. And the request I got is, will you consider doing that for the 10 or so buses that service the grade school? I know it's gonna be an additional, leg up for you, go the other way, as opposed to convenience of just going right out Alden. But it will be appreciated by the residents. And so as the mayor, it's not my job to bring forward those kind of requests for the residents for the school board to consider. And that's basically where we're at right now. I appreciate any comments or feedback. And I don't need a decision, of course, now. Of course, this is not something until the next school year, for sure. For sure, consideration by the school board, we appreciate it.
Well, so what's the feedback been from the residents since we've done all these things? Are they happier? Have they seen any improvement?
I think seems like everything was done pretty late in the year, so I'm not sure if people had a proper chance to sort of see it all firsthand. The minimal feedback I've had, which is positive, especially on Elm. So that's definitely a step in the right direction, and we appreciate it, and we want to be a partner with.
As a typical of my job, when I don't get feedback, I consider it a positive. Okay, so before there was negative feedback, it stopped. To get the positive feedback is a little too much.
Yeah.
But so I'm encouraged. And I hope that the school board continues what you've done at the end of this school year, the start of next school year. All
I
right.
just had one question. You had
Yeah.
mentioned that homeowners can't park in front of their house on Alden, but that's not no fault of the school. That's more of the no parking along Alden, correct?
Well, just remember that one of the first things, you probably don't know, one of the first things that was asked us to do when we updated the vehicle traffic law was to put in an alternate side of the street parking on all. Okay, and there was some level of feedback from the residents, some positive, some negative. But I also floated it to the school board and asked for your feedback. And basically, when he came back and said, here's the 5 reasons why we don't want that, we basically took it off the agenda. Okay, we reverted back to the current no parking during a certain hours, which basically for those who live there, makes it no parking during business.
No, I just wanted to clarify. I didn't know if it meant that the students were parking there or that. And that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay.
But again, we appreciated the feedback from the school board. It was significant enough for us to, especially when you got in terms of consideration of safety of the students. We said, let's
And
not
we appreciate that.
change it.
Yeah, we, when you look at we've looked at trying to get the buses to turn left and then turn right to go up Dale. And especially with a load of kids on, I know you can do it with a fire truck, but with a load of kids on there, trying to make that turn without like popping the bus up is very difficult.
Well, if that's,
We're
okay,
gonna,
let's not fix one problem, I think it's right here.
but we have a plan. Hopefully you guys can stick around tonight, take a look at this. For both Elm and Alden. And really, it's that whole complex, Alden Middle School, high school, to try to fix, traffic issues, not just on Alden, but fix our own traffic issues. I don't know what we'll do with that. Honestly, the SRO part, I have an issue with, because I don't want my SRO to become a parking ticket guy, like a parking enforcement person when he's supposed to be watching the school for safety and protecting our students. Now, I don't know if we can make those things, we'll have to take a look at that. But personally, I really don't want to see our SRO out writing traffic tickets.
I think you should talk to him and just understand the situation, because I think he's doing a very good job with what tools he's got available to him. And, in law enforcement, at some point, the road's got to meet the road.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, it's not good for the morale of the officers if they don't have that tool available to them.
Yeah.
I want him to be a full-time ticket writer for sure.
Yeah.
But if he's got that ability, that capability might be enough.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Tim or Pete?
Yes, I have one question. In any of your planning or updating of your laws or your requests specifically relating to the school district, has it been done in coordination with a licensed professional engineer who specializes in traffic operations?
No,
Okay, have you contacted the New York State Department of Transportation, Traffic and Safety Division in any of your requests to the school district?
I don't believe so, no.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We actually pursued a contract with a firm in Albany that would do a traffic analysis for us. And the bill was about $8,000 plus. And so at that point, we decided we would go with what we had.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, can you guys stay for?
I can say for a while, yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you all for
All
considering.
right, thank you guys for coming down. Thanks for the presentation for us. Really nice. All right, next is the second reading of policy 6640. Do I have a motion to approve it? Or adopt it?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions, comments, concerns? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Good. All right, new business, financial warrants, financials and warrants. Say that wrong every time. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Chris. Okay, any comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, is that? The next one is the merger with Weegatech on sports, on specifically football. Again, Millbrook is the host school. I don't think that has changed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Next is the donation from the PTO. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Comments, questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right. All right, next is the capital project update. Elliot, you wanna start?
Thank you. So we wanted to begin this evening, we are sharing the screen so folks at home can follow along. We just wanted to kind of always recap the timeline of events so people know if you're joining us kind of midstream, how we got here and where we are right now. So very briefly, we wanted to share this timeline with the board and the community. Mr. Rodriguez from the Palumbo Group joined us as our construction manager. Actually, let me take a moment and just introduce the team because I will be calling these people in the next couple minutes. So Lou Rodriguez from the Palumbo Group for Construction Management Services. They are the firm that will oversee whatever capital project we do, directly interfacing with contractors, making sure that the way the architects and engineers designed it is the way that it gets built. Our representatives from our architectural firm, BBS Architects and Engineers, Neto and Brian Manning. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight as well. And then we also are joined this evening by Lauren Hayes and Matt Pensis from Train. So they're going to talk to you about an EPC project, an energy performance contract portion of this project that we could potentially leverage to shave off costs, but also improve the overall condition of our facilities. So the Palumbo Group was one of the last firms that we brought into this process in January. In February, we started full project team meetings and very quickly identified Train as another partner that we could work with to address heating, ventilation, air quality, and energy conservation measures as part of our capital project process. From then through April into May and now into June, over the last 3 months, every person at that table has had representatives from their agencies in our buildings, crawling through our buildings, going through our plans, our bills, really getting their hands wrapped around the condition of our district as we look to prioritize capital renovations going forward. And again, we are tentatively scheduled for a November 14th, 2023 capital project vote. We're going to go out to the community and ask them to support major capital renovations for Millbrook schools. And one thing that's important to note is some background information.
The Board of Ed charged us with starting this process in 2021, and we said that we needed a number of things to happen before we could really go down this road. Our last state mandated building condition survey was conducted in 2015. So being 6 years removed from that, and with a shift in the timeline requirements from the state, without the next one happening until 2024, we felt it was imperative to have our design professionals really update that paperwork and look at the current or then current condition of our buildings and building systems. So we did an elective building condition survey once we retained BBS architects and engineers. The next thing that was really important to us was we were at the very early stages of our strategic planning process, and our superintendent can speak more to what that's going to look like. We wanted to define the true mission, vision, values of the district in order to inform what we renovate, right? Because the one thing that we didn't want to do is start taking down walls, opening up ceilings, and then realize that in 2 years, that room might serve an entirely different purpose because of the priorities of the district shifting. So we wanted to make sure that we understand exactly what we need and where we need it from a program perspective, and from a priority perspective, in order to lay out this plan and prioritize appropriately. And just as a reference point for the board and for our community at home, we wanted people to realize that the three main buildings of this district were constructed between 1954 and 1960. And what you'll see on the screen here is a couple of bullet points of capital renovations or additions that have been done since that time. And in short, we put a wing on Alden and a wing on Elm right around 1992. In 2006, we constructed Millbrook High School just across the parking lot here. In 2013, we did a moderate scope energy performance contract that addressed some of the heating and ventilation systems and some of the windows at Alden Place Elementary School. That's pretty much it. So for 4 buildings, or for your 3 main buildings that are roughly 60 years old, there has not been any significant capital renovations to your core building systems and the actual structures themselves. You folks that are sitting on the window wall can see that those are single pane original windows from 1960. So when we talk about a high level of need of items to address as we move forward and the design professionals present tonight, I just want everybody to keep in mind that we're going to talk about some pretty big things. And the reason for that is that we've gone a very long time without addressing some of the core needs of this district over the last 60 years. And you can just see the summary note at the bottom. Most of our buildings are in their original condition, regardless of when they were built.
And so in doing this work, we had decided that we wanted to see our strategic plan through and really come together as a group with our mission, vision, and values to be able to inform the work and the decisions and the prioritization that we want to do throughout this project. We spent over a year and a half working with all different groups of stakeholders, from Board of Education members, parents, students, faculty, staff, administrators, all represented in these groups. And we came together after a lot of wordsmithing and really getting to the core of what mattered most in getting feedback from our community members and the students, the teachers, the mission that we came up with. To sort of guide the future of this organization is that the Millbrook Central School District empowers and inspires students to define their own path to success through a personalized and supported learning experience that positively impacts our community locally and beyond. So one of the things that we really seek to do is to create opportunities for every student to find their niche here and to find programming that really speaks to their passions and the future that they want to pursue outside of high school and beyond. So our vision for that, what we would like to realize is that through innovation, collaboration, and a culture of belonging, our promise is that Millbrook Central School District prepares all students for the future that they choose. Again, speaking to the individualization of our programming so that students can find something to be passionate about, to really dig into in their time here. We also work together to align our values, and we came with the acronym of PEACE. So purpose, ethics, acceptance, community, and evolution. So you'll see that part of what we're talking about today. Again, we'll always go back to making sure that we have self-directed goals that students can pursue, and also really speaking and supporting to those differences, but being respectful of everyone's uniqueness in their time here. And I think one of the things that we will be talking about a lot throughout this project is how we can help students to grow into responsible and ethical, global citizens. And so when we speak about, in terms of our pillars for the strategic plan, this guided the work of 4 different teams. Each team had members from the community, we had students, we had administrators on each team. We had staff members from different positions, and we took a lot of the feedback from the community and created 4 different pillar groups of methods, connectedness, sustainability, and discourse, which are our key areas of focus throughout this 5-year plan. So in terms of methods, this is really being creative and innovative to expand the student experience and making sure that our students develop those universal skills that will make them employable and successful in the future. Those skills that sort of transcend time and future goals. And so in doing so, we really believe that part of the strategic plan needed to wait for this so that we understood what it was we were trying to build and have that vision for our schools. So you'll see, not that the others aren't important, but they don't speak as directly to this plan. What will speak to this plan will be the sustainability effort. So more about a lot of the upgrades, about a lot of the upgrades and the reasons for doing them, being more sustainable, being more energy efficient, being more environmentally conscious. And I think that's something that as a district, as Perry had mentioned, is really important for us to teach our students. When we're talking about sustainability, we're also talking about the sustainability of our finances. And, you know, sometimes these things end up costing a lot more money when we put them off and put Band-Aid solutions around them rather than fixing them and fixing them correctly, you know, at a responsible and reasonable timeline and planning for that over time. And we will also use our efforts in connectedness and discourse to be able to, you know, have conversations with the community about why this is so important. So each of our pillar teams will be integral in this process as we go forward, but that's sort of the, sort of how this evolved to be where we're sitting here today proposing, this new capital plan.
So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Manny from BBS, and Brian's gonna walk us through the general scope design that we're proposing.
Thanks, Elliot. Used to be here tonight. I'm gonna go through the scope that has been proposed for the capital bond 2023, as we're calling it. It's broken down by building, and we go building at a time. And we're gonna talk about the DCS things that are required. It's the building condition survey. That's a survey that Elliot mentioned that we did about like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, that identified all the issues with the building that need to be fixed because of safety, because of energy efficiency, because of code related things. There's a whole list of DCS items that we'll go through briefly. Also on the screen, if you're at home looking at the screen, there's a category for EPC, that's an energy performance contract. I'm not gonna get into that right now because training colleagues are gonna get into that, and we don't want to be redundant. So we're gonna start with Elm Drive. What you're seeing is the existing plan of Elm Drive as it exists today. And some of the building condition survey upgrade we're proposing is a completely new HVAC system, which is heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. So this building has a lot of issues in that area. It's a very inefficient building, and there's a lot of problems with air quality and moisture and humidity. So we're proposing a new HVAC upgrade for the entire building. There's going to be work done on power distribution systems that are just old and aging. Roofing modifications that are required because of the heating system we're putting in. There's going to be a lot of site improvements that I'm going to get to on another slide. And then, aside from the DCS and the EPC, there are program requirements of renovations that we're proposing. And I'll get into those as well. But in this building, it involves creating a real secure entrance and solving, at the same time, solving the traffic problem around the building that we heard about tonight, to try to get the cars off the street and alleviate the problem we're having over there. So I'm going to show you that in a different slide as well. So moving forward. So this is the same building, plan of the same building, but now we have on it the proposed renovations to the building. And the next slide will have the site. So. Right now, the main office is in this area here. Down by the gymnasium on the lower level. We're proposing to move that up to the higher level, we'll call it the next level up. And to create a secure entrance, the main secure entrance at the back of the building facing the parking lot. I'll get into the design of the parking lot and the drive up in a minute. But by moving the office functions out here, there's more eyes on the street, as we say, there's more security, having the administration there and overseeing. An additional improvement is, right now, the buses drop off in the back of the building, we'll call it the back, maybe the side, however you want to call it. They drop off there and the kids come in at the end of the hallway. Again, there's no eyes on the street there, there's no security there. I'm sure the person goes out and watches it in the morning, but it's not built, the architecture isn't there to make it flow perfectly. So what we're talking about doing is creating another vestibule towards the bus lane and improving the lobby. Right now, it's not a lobby, it's a hallway. It's got different levels. We're gonna solve the level problems we have, solve the ADA issues that we currently have in this area, make the lobby bigger and bring the kids from both sides of the building and any visitors to the same spot at the main office and the secure entrance. So that's gonna be a big improvement for safety. For the site, to go along with this moving of the secure entrance at the office, we're proposing to help the traffic pattern along the street here by putting a road from the back right to this corner where the secure entrance is, and then looping around and back out. This is all existing paving here. So this is a new road, entrance only. And the intent of that is so that the parents dropping off can queue up here, drop their kids off, and they have a long space to queue up. Maybe 25 or 30 cars can queue on this road. And that will get the traffic off the street and will solve the neighbors' issues with having problems with people in front of their driveway. That's one improvement. Another one is more minor, but in the back. The buses come around the back, as I mentioned, and there's parking areas that back into the bus lane. So we're gonna do a little change in the parking lot in the rear to fix that and make that work. This is just a larger scale picture of what I was explaining, where the main office is in blue, secure entrance is in yellow, and the traffic pattern in the green line. Next. Now we're gonna move to Alden. Alden's also gonna have a traffic issue that we try to resolve, but we'll get to that. Again, the EPC will be covered by train. The DCS items for Alden include site concrete driveway improvements, which I'll get into. School bus drop off and student drop off, I'll get into, and then the program renovations. So the big thing in this building, we can go to the next slide actually to explain it. The big issue in this building in terms of scheduling and having activities and things like that is that the gym and the cafeteria are one. And they have trouble getting all the gym classes in, getting it cleaned after lunch, etc. Moving the chairs in and out every day. So this building is blessed with a few extra classrooms that are underutilized. So what we're gonna plan to do is to build a cafeteria, a new cafeteria where right now some classrooms exist. So we're taking the walls down and expanding that area into a cafeteria. Again, the concept of getting the office in a better place to see what's going on around the campus. Right now, the office is in this location and all looks this way. It doesn't help at all with security. So if we move the office over here next to the cafeteria, then we'll have more of those eyes on the street, people watching what's going on and seeing what's happening because the administrative staff will be there. We propose to renovate the kitchen to change the work better within the cafeteria. And then in the space where the offices used to be, we'll move the functions that were on where the offices are going over to that side. Those are some small spaces for psychologists and remedial classes and things like that. And put the music classroom in this space, right next to the gym. Here's a look at the traffic. The current traffic pattern at Alden is quite a mess on this road here. Everyone's coming in this road. And parents are cutting across to come this way. Buses are coming to the back of the building and dropping off. And there's congestion in here that backs up traffic out onto Alden. And that's become an issue for the neighborhood, definitely. So I'll go to the next one. So what we're gonna propose to do is flip it. And again, having a longer runoff, a longer queue for the parents dropping off. By having the parents come through and drop off, come around the back, this loop exists, and drop off around the side here. So there's quite a long area. Again, maybe 30 cars worth of area that parents can stack up while they're waiting to let their kids out without affecting the traffic towards the street. And so the buses now will come in and they'll come in this way and drop off the kids right in front of the school and then go out, hopefully unimpeded by the parents that are dropping off. And you can see on this plan, by moving the cafeteria here, it's in a better location towards the playground, and it's in a good location towards the drop-offs if the school would like to gather the children there before release or in the morning to gather them. So that's what we propose for that. This is just more detail on how crosswalks would work and things like that. So now we move to the middle school, the building we're in right now. And you'll see there's a long list for the BCS. This building has a lot of building condition survey issues. Everything's original in this building. And a lot of it is energy inefficient, it's a code issue. There are ADA problems, American with Disability Act. And so we're trying to address that. So under the BCS, there are temperature control upgrades, a full HVAC, again, heating, ventilating, air conditioning upgrade for this building. Window abatement and window replacement. So this building needs a window replacement throughout the building. The windows we have that are in this room right here are single pane glass, and they're original. They're 60 years old, so they really need to be replaced. Interior doors, just in very bad condition. They're original. They're delaminating. Locker replacement. The lockers currently are not in the right place in the building where the administration would want them to be. Also not the right size. So we're take out the lockers that exist and either move the good ones to a different location or buy new ones. As we get involved in it and see what's the best to do. And then to provide a lift from the auditorium lobby to the level that we're on here in this cafeteria, so for that first set of stairs on the back. This one, we can skip and pull it after I show one thing. We were proposing a new entrance and that has been taken out because of the cost of it. The high cost of it. So the entrance to this building will remain on the center wing. So the key thing we're looking at here for the building is ADA compliance and improving it. Right now, there are cascading stairs. There are 3 wings connected, but at different levels, and the stairs are quite steep, steeper than the code allows, and also there are chair lifts that take quite a bit of time to traverse. So then you have to take 2 of them to get from the top to the bottom of the school. You have to take that ride twice, and we hear that ride takes about 4 minutes
Excuse me,
per step.
steeper on the stairways, steeper than the current code allows?
Yes.
Or than code when it was built?
I'm not certain about when it was built, but it's more steep than allowed now. Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's quite possible it's grandfathered in, but it's not quite safe. So, we're gonna renovate the technology and fax area. We're gonna move fax down to commingle with the technology area in this suite. And we can call this culinary because that's gonna be part of the program, but also, utilizing our greenhouse in the first courtyard in the planting bed so that program can have that activity right outside their window, or their door. And on the bottom here is the area where we would push the auditorium wall back a bit to get a lift. You get a lift that you take it from the auditorium level to this level that we're on in the cafeteria. The important thing, there's a lot of things about that, but one thing is there's no bathroom at this level of the auditorium. So when people are at a show or at an event, they don't have accessible bathrooms right now, so that would be that issue. High school. The exciting thing, one of the things we're doing is renovating the science labs and creating a science lecture and lab as two different things and improving upon the program there. That's on the upper level. On the lower level, right here is the media center library. With its giant chartgraph desk and its book stacks, and it's a dated way of looking at a media center library. Luckily, we have a large roof overhang. It's just empty space, not utilized outside. So what we're planning to do, you can go to the next slide. What we're planning to do in this cool colorful picture is extend the media center out to the edge of those roofs, or at least the columns that are holding up that roof, and creating a lot more area inside to make a STEM STEAM multi-use space that would include TV studio with green screen, an area for robotics, areas for kids to gather in smaller and larger groups. And yes, it'll also have a librarian and books, but it'll have these other things going on to draw the kids in. And have a nice wall so that people dropping off the high school will be able to see that activity happening inside. The high school, middle school site, you probably know that there's a lot of quirks to it and things that don't work quite well in the morning. One is this, the drop off here backing up, the high school drop off backing up traffic. The other one is when you enter this parking lot, you have to go around the whole parking lot to get out. Another one, if you're dropping off at the high school and the middle school, it's quite a circuitous route to do that because they're not connected. So I'll do the next one. So, and there are other issues, but those are the main issues. So what we're proposing to do at the high school, middle school complex is to take the buses up the main road and take them around the back of the building so that they're not on this loop road that has to drop off to the high school. That brings them to where they can drop off here and come around here and drop off as they do now right here in front of the middle school. So they'll have that option to come around and then they can go right out of the campus in either direction. That way or that way. We're achieving that, well, let me back up. At the high school drop off, we're gonna widen the road so that when parents pull over to drop off kids along the front of the high school, there's still a lane in that direction to drive past. Right now, that doesn't happen and it backs up terribly. So that will resolve that issue, I think. The main part of this design is creating a roundabout where all the roads come together. There's 4 or 5 roads here that all come together, and now they don't come together well. You have to go certain directions and things are one way. This will be like a typical roundabout where you can enter it from multiple areas and go around and get off wherever you want to get off, whichever place you want to go. Like the roundabout you have in town. So that's our proposal for to ease the traffic burden on this campus. And that is a detail, a larger detail of how that circle would work. This is the crosswalk because a lot of students in the high school come to the middle school for class. This will be a much safer situation than we have now. And right size signage, right? The problem you have with the signage now, with ticketing, one of the problems is they're too small. I don't know, but the signs are too small to allow the police to ticket them. So we'll be fixing that. So that's the plan for each site. I'm gonna turn this over to Trey now. We're gonna talk about the energy performance contract. And then Lou will do some, talk about the budget after that.
So. You all know us, but Lauren from Train and this is Matt from Train. So we're gonna talk about the energy performance contract. Before I dive into what we found, I think one thing to note is. When we look at an energy performance contract, you have to look at where you are currently to get a baseline, right? So our team has been going through, as mentioned, a lot of utility information, utility bills to see, how your buildings are performing. As well as we've been on site for multiple weeks, just looking at your existing conditions to come up with a high level scope of work that we're gonna kind of touch on. So do you want to go to the next slide? So these are a couple of the energy conservation measures that we've seen. One thing to note, Train is industry leading in heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So when we look at these projects, we're always looking at where the industry is going, as well as leveraging your energy to improve your facility and working with your existing capital projects team to implement some of these changes that you can leverage the energy to offset the cost. So one of the big things that we identified was lighting. So lighting across your district, upgrading them to new LED lights. That's a huge savings. As you can see, you guys have some old lighting across the district. Another one that Matt will go into more information on that we saw was, your boiler systems. So Alden and Elm are still the existing steam boilers. So as mentioned in your BCS that BDS did, the steam is causing a lot of issues at Elm. The floor tiles are lifting up because of the heat, the humidity is really bad in that space. So addressing the boilers, high efficiency hot water boilers in those two buildings. And then temperature controls is another big one that we're looking at. So bringing every, building into one front end. Matt spoke a lot to your staff here and they're doing everything manually, which is really inefficient, not a good use of their time, to be honest, as well. So having that into a digital system to improve the operation of your building, indoor air quality is a big piece of that, scheduling, and leveraging that new building system as curriculum-based education. So Train has NC3 certification curriculum that we can implement into the district. So every kid graduating gets this certification if they go through the program. So we'll work with that to leverage that. And the last one is building envelope improvements. So sealing up your buildings, like I said, to get a baseline, looking at what you have and trying to seal up everything. I'm gonna hand it over to you to touch on some stuff.
Yeah, for the pictures that are shown here, some of those lights are like service mount lighting like we have here in the cafeteria. The lenses in those particular fixtures are old, they're irreplaceable, and they're cracked, they're damaged. So we look at providing new fixtures where needed. And, the technology, we're looking at T8 lighting, which is about 1990s technology. Everything would be upgraded to LED, state of the art. The building control systems, that's Elm that's shown there. That's an air compressor. We're using compressed air to actually actuate and change valve positions instead of electronics. Train has a state of the art system that actually uses wireless technology to control things instead of having to run pipes and wires everywhere. We're in the 21st century, so we look at that. That's the control system in those buildings are in Elm and Alden are basically like 1960s technology with pneumatic controls. Have some electronic overlay, but it's very and not very user friendly. The bottom left pictures are of the steam plant at Elm. The boilers there are technology that's like turn of the 20th century, early 1900s technology, utilizing steam. And you'll see there's a pipe there to the right that's got a circle around it. That's a bare steam pipe. And a steam pipe has a couple 100-degree steam in it running through the crawl spaces of the building. It overheats the spaces. And I'm sure that everyone who's driven by the building in the winter time or during the shoulder periods like spring and fall You'll see the windows are open because the spaces are overheating from uncontrollable steam, heat that's migrating through. The top pictures were building envelope pictures, so you can see like addressed under the BCS, they're gonna change windows and stuff like that. But those are, so it's showing single pane windows and the very thin walls, inch and a half thick. And then the bottom of that door is, when you look at the picture closer, you can see that there's no door sweep and, you know, wind and snow and stuff can come right directly under that. So we look at sealing up all those doors.
And addressing the high school chiller plant is part of this as well. We don't have a picture of it, but bringing that chiller plant into the 21st century, looking at some clean heat and cool solutions, thermal storage potential. So in leveraging, our EPC looks at all of the incentives to leverage to bring the costs down and the payback down. So we're looking at two options right now. One includes solar and one doesn't. So the first one on the screen would be one thing I want to hit to when you look at when Lou goes over the budget. So LED lighting across the district was highlighted in your BCS in year 2 or 3. We're pulling it in now to get it done to leverage that for energy savings. And obviously the boilers, the steam boilers were highlighted in your BCS as well. So additional things that we're looking at on here is building envelope improvements that you guys need to seal up your building, water conservation, and using clean heat technology and working with BDS and the construction team to leverage where the industry is going, right? Decarbonization, sustainability, things like that in the overall capital design too. So working with them to make sure this is a cohesive project. So right now I see the first one without solar is around a $4 million EPC that pays back in 14.5 years.
When factoring building aid.
When factoring the building aid in, yeah.
And so the rules of the state with regard to energy performance contracts are they need to pay for themselves without building aid within 18 years. It's the systems that we install need to be able to last at least 18 years. That's the other rule of it. And so most of the products we're applying have a 25-year useful life. You guys have systems that are 60 years old. They're similar to what we're putting in. You know, we'll have the modern technology version of that. These systems could last 60 years, but we don't recommend it. You know, so most of them have a useful life of about 25 years before you should start looking at replacing them. And so this version is, you know, it's pretty. When I look at energy projects, I always like to start with, let's do our best part to reduce energy consumption and be energy conscious. And then the next project looks at renewables. And, you know, so let's start with lower our carbon footprint. And then we'll take it a step further by adding solar. We looked at solar for the middle school primarily because this building in the capital project is planned for a new roof. And we like to apply solar products to a nice new roof. And we don't want to bury an old roof under a new high-tech solar system that could have problems in the future. So we looked at it here. We have a partner that is looking at solar in other areas on the campus too. And so there will be a few options that we'll present to the district for solar, but primarily, you know, addressing solar on the roof of the middle school because it'll have a brand new roof. So some of the benefits of this, you know, it's a hedge on future energy costs. The less energy you consume, the better hedge you have on inflation and things like that. So start by reducing your energy intensity, be as energy conscious as you can. And the beauty of it is it's helping address these systems that have exceeded their useful life and are deferred maintenance items that you have to replace. So it's all in concert with what Lou and Brian's team have developed. These things all complement each other. Our project leverages energy rebates through multiple programs. We use NYSERDA. We're looking at stuff through Central Hudson,
And then we're also leveraging the investment tax credits and the 179 tax incentives for energy saving projects and green and renewable projects. So our project will guarantee any of the incentives that come through. And we can either take them off the price of the job depending on it, or it can be a direct back to the.
Any idea the percentage that that solar array will take out of our electric usage? I don't know what our electric usage is per year.
So what we're looking at right now is for the middle school, and it's kind of strategic to look at it for the middle school, because you will be looking at adding air conditioning and stuff here. And so your energy, without doing the energy performance contract with the solar, your energy consumption could go up because of the air conditioning. It will cut after future changes here. I think it'll cut the electric use at the high school or the middle school by about 50%. And there's net metering, so if you did systems that were bigger and overproduced, you can take those off of that energy comes off of the winter months where the solar doesn't produce as much.
I had a question. You had mentioned previously, Elm Drive, I believe the operating cost is like $4 a square foot. And is that, for example, on a monthly basis, annual basis, or?
Yeah, so when we looked at the overall annual cost, and it breaks down monthly too, it's $4 per square foot. An average school in New York operates around $1.50 a square foot. And so your energy costs at that building on a per square foot basis rival hospitals and high intensity energy facilities that have cooling and everything. So it's the highest energy density, energy use per square foot that I've in this district that I've seen in probably 15 years of doing it.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board?
Okay, so we'll ask Mr. Rodriguez to come up and walk us through the financial estimation thus far.
All right, guys, again, my name is Lou Rodriguez, Group. We've done many projects with you in the past, all successful. I think this is, we're just talking about planning on your next one. Taking care of your house, right? This is a tough conversation. You gotta take care of your house. When you look at everything that what's been talked about, this is a full picture. What we've done over the past 2.5, 3 months with the committee is really taken this big project and broken it up into pieces that could be looked at by the community and really prioritize the major components. So you will see in this handout, there are 3 propositions, and the 3 propositions really talk to program renovations, site work, building condition survey items. Again, the important things that were really talked about with committees, and you'll see that when you read through it, they're all important, but you can't take it all on. So really, again, I try to compare it to taking care of your house. What's the plan? You may, as a community, you may say, well, you know what, Prop 1 items, Prop 2 items are really important. Prop 3, we can deal with those in another 5 years, but they're all important. How do you present it to the community? And this is the first go at it, right? So this is just a look at how the committee looked at it. Prop 1, when you look at it, the committee felt at the middle school program renovations, this school really hasn't been touched much. So you'll see the renovations here. tech room, a culinary, multi-purpose rooms, renovations to science classrooms, talk about the walk-in freezer, and adding elevators to really talk about transition between the spines. Right now, when you look at transition between each one of the spines of the levels, and the superintendent said it earlier, the movement between the spines, it could, if you had to go to the lower level, it's 8 minutes. Plus maneuvering, so that's really talked about in this first prop, and the roof. So you look at the building envelope, this building right now, the roof is failing. And that's a big deal, and that's part of this first prop. All in place, there's some basic renovations that are looked at. Talked about the circulation, bus loop, student drop off, that really helped ease things there. And over there also, part of the BCS is the boiler room. And just adding a boiler. Elm Drive has a significant amount of program renovations and just reinventing how the building works, security wise, in and out. And then the BCS side of it is really HVAC. It's reinventing how the building breathes, full HVAC, introducing a lot more outside air. So that's really what Elm Drive talks to. And then Lauren and Matt talked about the items, and you'll see that 3.9 million at the end for Prop 1 really talks to those important items that are part of the EPC. And that total is 33 million. This is a fluid document. I want to say this is what we're doing is really presenting today what the committee really talked about, what they felt the priorities were. If we're looking at a November vote, the board really has to come to a decision in October to say what they really feel is important. So this thinking, it's fluid. It can move to say adding things to priority 1 or Prop 1, taking things away from Prop 1, moving to Prop 2. When you move to Prop 2, now we add in the high school. So in Prop 1, the high school really wasn't talked about. We talked about the areas, when you look at any site work, it's really associated with bumping out that lower library area to create circulation and parent drop off. So it's science classroom, library space, and hardening and STEM and that space. So when you look at the high school, that's really those nice colorful spaces that Brian was talking about. Middle school, it's really now talking about improving student drop off and talking about that roundabout, right? That roundabout here and making circulation work better down here. And in this building in particular, improving the controls, full HVAC upgrade. So Prop 2 talks about reinventing how this building breathes. So that's really, really important. And then you'll see on the EPC side, it's adding solar. So in Prop 1, we're talking about a new roof on this building. Prop 2 talks about putting solar on the new roof, right? So Prop 1, if you decide to do solar at a later time, you got a new roof, you do the Prop 2 and that happens. So you'll see there's an ad for the 2 million for the solar work. Prop 3, it finishes all of the circulation. It talks about EV parking, it talks about outdoor multi-purpose spaces at the high school. It talks about, again, driveway improvements at the middle school. At Alden, it's more program, it's more renovations at the office spaces. At Elm, it's that optional side or that optional roadway that would allow for parents to drop off. That's the big one. When you look at Elm on this one, it's really reinventing how that site talks to circulation. And then the final thing is at the bus garage, and this is a constant conversation and it's going to continue, is EV charging stations for buses. So this is like the first try, right? Let's just get something in play. When you have an EV bus come here and they are bringing students from another district, where are they going to go to park and charge, right now, you don't have a place for that bus, but as other districts start, looking at, electric buses, you're gonna have to provide a place for those buses to charge while they're waiting. So that's,
However, we do not own property at the bus garage, do we?
So that's a very good point, and it's just a clarification. We talked about adding this either adjacent to the high school or at the maintenance garage, which used to be our bus garage on the side plans.
The old one.
The old bus
I'm sorry,
garage, and the reason for that is so that the visiting buses could get home. In the event that they-
Why wouldn't you add it at first student?
Right.
Like have them, they're gonna have to redo their buses for electric.
So
They're gonna have to charge their buses. Why wouldn't we?
we have to look at the timing of that and the timing of our 5-year contract. So
Okay.
like, we have to be prepared to address like 2 or 3 buses. They have to be prepared to address 20 buses. Well, we're kind of looking at them separately because we don't know the evolution of that property as the contract.
and that's great, that's a great question. Every district is looking at if they're, doing any type of, leasing of buses and that, or have that relationship. How do you deal with, the charging? Yeah.
Well, we can, I mean, and if we sit down with, first student, go through this, we should be able to at least hopefully come up with an agreement, whether we leave it in here or not, right?
For sure. I mean, so if we were going to go down that road, we're just visiting teams, drop off your kids and go 5 minutes down the road to plug in. We'll call you when we're ready to pick up. Something like that.
And I think that's why it was Prop rate.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of, it's lower priority, but it's something on the radar. How do you figure it out? And then again, I think it's a working document. It's a great start. I think a lot of work was put into it, by the team. And, as we continue to fine tune it, I think it's just gonna get better. We come back and
Have you guys done these bus charging stations in other districts?
so the biggest one, we're working with right now, Rondout Valley. When you look at all the districts in New York State, they got the biggest grant. And we're working with them. So when you look at every district is trying it. We're working with over 25 districts. Not one has got a.
Yeah, I'm
Because
more,
we're trying to figure it out.
I'm more
Everyone's
interested.
trying to figure
The
how do
state,
you, what's the best approach, right?
I mean, the state basically said thou shalt have electric buses by whatever the hell they said it.
Right.
And yet there's no money to actually put charging stations in. It would be nice, if one of the other districts had figured it out and know how to get grants. Rather than us have to get our taxpayers to pay for it. Well, you pay for it no matter what, but.
Yeah, Rondout got 12 million, but they have until 2028, 2030 to figure out how they're gonna institute that program. So it's just, you gotta work through it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Lou. So I want to talk about the financing piece of the project. And I do want to thank our facilities subcommittee, inclusive of our board members, because the feedback from the committee actually reduced almost $4 million of this scope by just, having us go back and revisit different scope options. And we really need that and can do this differently. So I think definitely kudos to the central administration and the board for, giving us all that feedback. I understand, I know it's still a big number, but I did want to mention also that the 67 is inclusive of the entire 6 million potential EPC budget, and that would be cost neutral to the taxpayer. So when we talk about funding this project, I want to just say that currently the district can support a cost neutral project of roughly $19.5 million. So for those that may remember, we have a capital reserve fund that's currently funded at $8.8 million, a $10 million authorization. We are potentially looking to put a little bit more money into that at the end of this fiscal year. And the EPC piece would also be tax neutral to the taxpayer. So when Mr. Rodriguez shared count 1 at 33 million, 3 million of that was potential EPC. So we're going to look at that in kind of a round number format and say the district can go out for $20 million tax neutral. That's what that means, without bumping up anybody's taxes significantly for this project. We've identified an additional $10 million of things that we just can't see going out to the community and not asking them for. So that brings our baseline budget composition one to about $30 million, again, using very round numbers, just to illustrate the point. So what I'm gonna put up on the screen right now, and I'll share it for those at home, is an estimation. This is just a draft, as Mr. Rodriguez, the entire team said, these are all living documents and they're constantly evolving. But what this is this looks at senior rates, star piece in the middle and no star. So I'm gonna focus kind of right in the middle of this page. We did this in $100,000 home assessed increments. And we're gonna look at this with a 75% bond percentage. What that means is, at this stage of the game, we don't wanna erroneously assume that the entire scope of work is completely aidable by the state. Some things are not aidable, some things are aidable at a lesser rate. So to be conservative, we're estimating a 75% aidable project. And so we looked at a $10 million incremental scale for 10 million beyond tax neutral. So for that prop one, if we have a couple of assumptions, if we assume that Train can do the $3 million that they're proposing into their EPC, and we assume that the district can take care of roughly 20 million at tax neutral, we've got 10 million left. So I'm gonna, again, aim for right in the middle of the page. If you own a home that's assessed at a $400,000 value, if we go $10 million beyond tax neutral for that proposition one, the cost of the homeowner in your primary residence would be roughly $144 a year or $12 a month. So we're gonna have our financial planners keep revisiting these numbers as the scope evolves and tightens up, because the more detail they have about the scope, the more they can determine if it's 75% aidable, if it's 85% aidable, if it's 90% aidable.
So how much would we be for the full scope, the 68 million?
So if we were to do the 68 million, again, assume that 6 million comes off in the EPC, so we're at just over 60. And we can do just about 20 tax neutral, so we're really gonna multiply this number by 4. So for that homeowner right in the middle, that $400,000 home, you're looking at $48 a month to support the entire scope of what we're talking about.
Why was the times 4?
Because it's 40 million above tax neutral.
Okay.
Right? So if we do just prop one, it's $12 a month. If we do props 1 and 2, it's roughly $35 a month, $36 a month. And if we do the full gamut, it's about $48 a month for that taxpayer. So we just wanted to share that because I think it's important to know that $60 million is a huge number and it's intimidating. But I mean, rightfully so. The answer is, well, how does this affect me as a taxpayer, right? My kids go here. So if you've got a child in the district that's at Elm Drive, they've got 10 years to go. All right, your taxes might go up $40 for the rest of your child's time in district to give them all of this renovation in every building that they're going to build.
Besides the yearly, hopefully under cap, but 2%.
Correct, and this is so capital renovations are exceptions to the tax cap, so this would not inhibit our ability to run our operating business as usual. So thank you for clarifying that point, Howard. So we're still bound by the tax cap, and we still want to be very responsible. I think we did a pretty good job this year keeping it well under the cap, but that would still remain. Right? This authorization would just let us go that $40 beyond the cap, but we're still capped. Okay. I think that's it for the team. Thank you all for coming. Does anybody have any questions?
If you guys can just, thank you. What I'd like to do is give the board a chance for questions, and then if there's anybody online or anybody that's here that has a question, I'd like to get those out. So anyone on the board, questions, comments?
Got lots of questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through them all right now. There's too many. I'm a little concerned about how fast this is going. These materials are not even attached to the agenda yet, so I don't really think we've had adequate time to review them. But even like a basic question, the high school costs 26 million to build. You're proposing 20 million renovations to this building. Is it worth it, or should we be building a new building?
I don't know if that's 26 million.
I know it's not gonna be 26 anymore, but in the end, what are we gonna have?
Right.
For that much money?
Yeah, when you look at the high school project with a $23 million bond. The actual cost to build the high school, it's an 80,000 square foot facility. We built it for about 18 million. And that was back in 2006.
I think the 26 million number on the website.
The 26 was with additional site work.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know, when we went out to referendum for the high school actually, and it's a great, I'm glad you're bringing it up. When the high school was first talked about, it was talked about as 130,000 square foot facility. You know, and after going through the process with the community and getting feedback and whatnot, it got shrunk to what it is today, which is, again, it's an 80,000 square foot facility. But again, the cost,
It was 2 votes went down.
well, 2 votes went down because everyone felt
It was too big.
it was too big, right? So that's important. It wasn't that you didn't need it. It was that it was too big. So the whole idea of a campaign and talking and really communicating the project is really important because, as the board president said, if somebody comes out and says no, just because they're saying no, that's one thing. But if they come out and say no because they were taught and they still don't agree, that's a totally different idea. So let's make sure we're talking about the project. Let's let everyone know about the project, teach them. And when they come out and they vote, they're voting with some real knowledge, right? And so, to your point, the dollars on that high school weren't, not 26, but yes. The hard number on that high school was 18. And it was an empty lot at that point, right? It was not an empty lot, it was a mountain that we blasted into.
Right. There wasn't a building.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would make sense to do that, I'm just
If we're gonna do
convinced
that,
we
I'd rather
we will look at every option.
bulldoze this.
Right, but even. Well, you're probably talking twice the amount these days as far as versus 17 years ago, correct?
That's correct. And and you have some good, I think you have some good bones here. When you look at the strategy here, they built it on tiers on purpose because to take this lot and make it level would be a crazy undertaking. So what we're trying to do with the idea that the elevators is trying to make everything easy to get to. Easier to get to than it is right now.
Yeah, the other factor is if you replace this building, it's gonna be a lot more expensive than high school, maybe 5 times, I would say, but for the square footage, but you need to have land to build it on, because you can't demolish this and then build a building. That's a 3-year project, you have to have a place for the kid. So if you're a district that had a piece of land that you've already owned, it might help the situation. Also, the state aid doesn't work well for new buildings. You would get much less state aid than you're gonna get for this kind of project.
Right, you don't get aid for corridors, bathrooms, closets, mechanical rooms, which in a new facility, when you're building that, you don't get aid for any of those spaces that you have to build, which you already have. So right now, you're getting aid for your classroom spaces.
I have a question. What happens, and maybe it's unlikely, if technology changes and there's something better out there now, because this is a multi-year project, there's something better, how does that work? Because we don't want to pay now for millions of dollars for something that is now considered old or outdated.
So from an engineering perspective for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, we follow not the New York State code, but Department of Energy code. We have a lot of codes we have to follow, right? So those are all the industry standards. So the biggest thing when we're designing is working with the BBS engineers. Trane is industry leading in a lot of new technologies, new refrigerants, everything, and just bringing that industry knowledge and national and global knowledge of where everything's going to the design aspect. And then it goes to the state, which we have to meet all of the SED requirements as well as, ASHRAE code, Department of Energy code. So all of the products that get approved and then built from a mechanical, I can only speak to the mechanical side of it, right? From our HVAC mechanical solar aspect are what is current in that moment. So that's right. There's that side of the technology.
Also, to maintain flexibility is the new word in schools, and having spaces that can function in many different ways. Furniture that moves around. Don't narrow in on technology like a certain plug-in. Just use a plug and have the kids bring their device, because it's going to change over the next few years. Apple's going to create a new one and change it again. that kind of thing, you gotta be flexible these days, because things are changing faster than when we were together as well.
I think you need to be flexible in any era. When this building was built in 1960, it was good, it met all the good engineering at the time, including these single pane glass windows, met all of the current engineering standards as well as the state ed standards at the time. And as we've learned, things do progress fairly quickly and change. But I agree with David. A lot of this is just been thrown at least myself and David. We haven't seen any of this before and or have time to digest any of this. There are a lot of questions, but I'm not prepared to ask at this time.
Yeah, I think we do need to follow up.
Well, what about the reorganization meeting? You think you can be through the stuff for that meeting, and then we can decide whether conceptually we're okay with it, or we can start out with, well, I guess we
Isn't
can't
that already?
No, it's not usually that too bad.
I mean, there's certain things I just think need further discussion as far as, the lockers, the gym, the parent drop off. These are all things in my head as far as, that's a few, $2 to $3 million right there. Anywhere we could shave and really not hurt needs to be discussed, in my opinion. But I think as a whole, it's great. But I still think there's quite a few talking points in here.
I'd also be interested at the mayor to see what the constituents think about that whole road with the traffic diversion from Elm Drive, and is that something that they would support about something taken into consideration, because that's a whole other multi-million-dollar part of it.
Well, we could do it and make some people happy and make others
Right,
not happy.
right, well,
That-
get
that's the-
feedback on if that's worth it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to see this voted down multiple times like the high school. I'd rather take the effort to right size the ask the first time.
Sure.
And get it through.
All right. Anything else?
I'm just devil's advocate for seeing some taxpayers wondering, looking at our declining enrollment and asking why. Do we have a contingency plan for perhaps not? I understand our vision, our goals as the board. But do we have some type of contingency plan a few years from now? If to maybe not remediate all the buildings. If we see a huge decline in enrollment.
I think the biggest thing that we have to consider is that the building that's been updated the most recently, obviously the high school being the newest, but is Elm Drive because of the mold situation.
Yeah.
But that, in order to continue to run that building with any efficiency, we have to do those upgrades. So I mean, I don't know, the community was very vocal when we had those conversations about not utilizing all four
Right.
buildings. And the reality is that a large portion of this total scope, right, is out of necessity. So the unfortunate part is when we talk about cutting back, it's gonna be cutting back the really exciting things that are integral in like enhancing program. Because the other stuff has to be done in order to safely operate these buildings into the future.
Right, I get that. I'm just thinking marketing wise, and when we meet with the community, that's something that we should probably.
Well, I think we have to keep them. We have to keep them open. I mean, even if
Yeah.
we shut a building down, we can't just
Let
shut
it,
it down.
right,
If we, and this was, when we put this out to the people in Millbrook, they were really upset that we would even consider shutting a building down. They wanted it the way it is, Millbrook being the school district the way it is.
But they
Yeah.
didn't have a price tag at that
Hey,
point.
well, that's what I'm
Looking at either keep open or
Right.
spend this,
it wasn't happening.
$6 million to keep it open.
I I mean,
I don't know, we'll talk in years.
yeah, I would just.
The other thing that I'll share with the board for consideration is that a very fundamental level, these are real property assets that the board is responsible for owning. And whether we use it, the entire building for educational programs, or we shift office space, we rent it. Or whatever we do to leverage that real property asset, it's still ours to take care of. And there have been other districts, even locally, that have closed down buildings, let them sit for a number of years, and then when it came time to leverage that asset, either by liquidation or rental to create an income stream, they then had to face the cost of renovation in order to make it rentable, to make it lucrative, to then liquidate it or rent it out. So in mind is, even if we change the purposing of a building, we still own it until we don't, and it's our responsibility to take care of it.
No, I just think that's the message, exactly what you said.
Well, and the fact is, we're trying to make up for 40, 50, 60 years of sin. You know, the place has not been taken care of since it was built. And, you know, we can say, geez, well, you know, it's a lot of money, but this is like generations of people that have ignored this, have basically said, wow, that's a lot of money, we can't spend that kind of money. Put a bucket under the drip from the roof, you know, so, I mean, that's our job, if the people vote it down. You know, now if we can trim the stuff out of it to say, you know, we really don't need this. I still think, and I think kind of Tim will probably agree with me, if we cut that swath through Elm Drive, people are gonna have a fit. Because that's a big grass area that's beautiful in the middle of the village. And now you're putting a 25-foot piece of concrete or a blacktop down the side of it. I think they're going to, you know, they're gonna have an issue with us, you know, swirling all the traffic out one exit. Because all that stuff is gonna, a lot of it's gonna go into the village. All together, but. You know, we can weasel this down. That's not a good word, but we can whittle it. But we can look through it, but, you know, the bottom line is we owe it. I think we owe the taxpayers. This is what it's gonna cost to fix everything that wasn't fixed in the last, you know, 50 years. That, you know, Elm Drive, we've had people fall in those hallways because there's water running down the hallways in the summer. Because you know, it's condensing on the floor. You know, we've had steam pouring out of that pipe in Elm since I've lived here, and it drives me insane. I mean, it's just money we're throwing away. So, but this is what each one of you needs to spend time going through this. If you have questions for our folks, let's get them out there, because, you know.
And keep in mind too, we didn't have Elm for a year and I think Steve would agree, we were busting at the seams with children. So, you know, it's just a good exercise that we actually went through without a school and what it did to the district. I mean, it was.
And we
you know,
certainly needed all four during COVID, right?
Well, yeah, also, if you looked at the enrollment reports, they're not taking dramatic dives. They're not where they were when they decided to build a high school, but they're not dramatically diving.
We had an 18 new enrollments since January this year.
So, I mean, I guess either we do it at the next meeting or we do it later in July. Which would be the, what, 25th, I think.
Would it be helpful to do another workshop type setting with each board member to provide feedback? Is that helpful?
You know.
I think that's all.
July 11th.
Oh, crap. All right, so it's July 11th, or it's August, whatever, the first meeting in August.
Yeah. I mean, you said we have until October, but obviously we don't want to get that long, at least for.
Because of the size of the project, I'd like to have something visible to the community when we get back in September. Even a baseline proposition, because what these gentlemen didn't share yet, because it's a little further down the road, with these like, beautiful graphic designs of what this could look like, and then really help us communicate it out to the community.
So look, let's take a shot. We can't do a workshop on July 11th until after, I think, until after we've established committees and boards and, or, roles. But we could do it after that.
We shift the board meeting back an hour and then have.
Yeah. All right, we'll move it to 6. And then, and like I said, if you have questions, I would route them through Elliot. Is that okay?
That's fine.
And then, you can get the right person.
You want to try to put our lists together in advance and send them to Elliot? This way we have it and.
I mean, if there's something you just don't understand, I mean, if there's, hey, why do we have to do that, can we cut these things out and want to pull a list of those together? But if there's something you just don't understand why that's in there.
Yeah, but questions should be done in public session.
Well, I'm not saying
Yeah, and it
answer,
won't give
I'm just saying put
it's
them
time
together.
to prepare. I think that's the piece is that if there's something that's very technical, we will
Correct, if
get,
anything is technical.
yeah, we're going to have to get
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
answer.
just for organization purposes, not for answering.
And I mean, we don't have to necessarily respond
No.
and shape the presentation based
Yeah.
on the feedback.
And what we do on.
Yeah.
Or like after we do the organization part is, that's in the public, so I think we'll be all right.
Carrie, I was gonna say, just for myself, I kind of want to know why the subcommittee put maybe some of the pieces of this under props 1, 2, or 3. And so, for example, I was not on the subcommittee, so my opinion on something under prop 3, I might want to say, well, can we move that to prop 1? That's kind of what I'm envisioning for that workshop or the next meeting. Okay.
All right, so any other questions? Sorry.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
So anything logistically, anything that's on your building condition survey that fails without repairing it in a capital project isn't aidable as an emergency repair. So if you have stuff that is identified on your building condition survey and it fails before you get a chance to replace it, it's not aidable as an emergency repair. So just to keep that in mind as you're looking at the PCS stuff and prioritizing items.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay. Next, do we have anybody online? Okay. And did you have a question?
Yeah, I can make questions about the first gentleman's, traffic flow. When you, put the road and back up on Drive, and there serious landscaping that's gonna go along with that to try to, accommodate the roads or new road. On the side where there's homeowners, yeah, it's totally wooded or there's a lot of bushes and trees that are totally blocked off already, but we can into that more. And you talking about what towards the both sides? Yeah, yes. Okay, so there will be landscaping on both sides of the road? Yes. Okay, fine. On the grade school, when you're topping the drop off, parents and the buses, you're gonna widen that entry road? Yeah. You are, okay, fine. Third question is the roundabout at the high school. Once that's completed, what portion of the buses will go out all in place? This completed.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's something we haven't decided yet.
That's not part of it, because I couldn't.
No, it's not. I mean, we can, and once that's in there and assuming, the buses don't like make a mess of it.
Mhm.
So, Alden buses coming up, the other buses coming down, if that doesn't make a mess of it, it's our. Buddy out, all buses.
Because like I think it's.
Now, the parents' stuff, and cars,
That's separate.
teachers, they can go wherever they want.
Buses. Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you, Tim. All right, nothing from the public? All right, President, Vice President's report, Dutchess County School Board is shut down for the summer, so I don't really have anything. Chris?
Now, our next meeting is on July 11th, so I just wanted to congratulate all the students who are moving up to new schools and those graduating. Wish everybody the best of luck.
Yeah.
So I did get correspondence actually from, the school board today, about about advocacy around preschool. So you're going to be getting a letter from the Dutchess County School Boards about advocacy around the pre-K programs that have been very difficult for staff and whatnot. So that would be, I think, their last order of business for the school year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're done.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. See you again.
So we had a really awesome fifth grade moving up ceremony. I was completely blown away by the ukulele performance. Which is so awesome. The ukuleles were funded by the NEF, so it was really nice to see them in action. It was super cute. If you missed it, hopefully we get another encore performance from them because it was just way too cute. And I actually couldn't believe that they were like in sync and the singing, everything. It was just awesome for fifth grade especially. We have begun our work planning for next year with our literacy consultant. She was here. One of them was here on Friday doing walkthroughs to just get some baselines for instruction to be able to plan appropriate entry points into working with our teachers. We had a successful audit of our region's administration, so I'm not sure if the board is aware, but there are auditors from New York State that go out and spot check things like test security and the administration and everything. So not all of the schools in Dutchess County, but a bunch of schools in Dutchess County were audited last week. We had our audit at the high school, and the auditor at the time pointed nothing out that needed to be immediately remediated, and we'll wait for any final report that comes through, but it seems very positive. We will be working with teachers for the 2.5 days at the end of this week with the trainer from PNW BOE that will work on the expansion of the elementary math program using Eureka. In terms of school safety, which I do have a school safety report from the safety team this meeting as well, but I did want to point out that we had a really awesome reunification drill at Elm Drive on June 8th. I'm so proud to say that we were able to be used as a lab site for 2 other Dutchess County schools to come and observe. This is a new process for many school districts that they have not actually done a walkthrough of this type of drill before. So they were able to come and see how it would run. We were able to invite them in, let them look at all different stages of the reunification process. I then was at a retirement party right after that, and it was all I heard about from people from another district. Oh yeah, they were at your school. It was so great to see it. And, you know, it seemed on paper very confusing, but then when you actually walk through it, it's so helpful for other people to see. So, you know, last year, the middle and high school staff did it for the first time. This year, they were able to help our 2 elementary schools run through theirs. So I'm really proud of the fact that we are, you know, sort of ahead with these safety efforts. The capital project team, you just saw the most up-to-date presentation of where we are in those efforts. I want to thank the facilities subcommittee for the extra time that they put in additional meetings and working with us and our contracted partners. We also had middle school field days that started today. We have 2 more days of field day, if the weather permits, obviously. We had a great week of award ceremonies on a Friday, Monday for our seniors and our underclassmen. And then after that happened, we found out we had 31 student athletes from the spring season, and 3 of our sports teams who were recognized as scholar athletes. So unfortunately, we weren't able to recognize them, but we did send it out and did acknowledge them last week. I want to thank MEF and the Tribute Garden. MEF provided the graduation signs that will be out on the village screen, and thank you for Tribute Garden for allowing us to use that space to have those graduation signs out. So they'll be there on Thursday, and then we'll be moving them up to the field. So that will be on the walk for our students on their way up. We had a bunch of rescheduled field trips due to the Canadian wildfires, trips to Washington Park, Lake Compounds, etc. So throughout these last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of shifting and rescheduling of some of our programs up at each of the buildings. On Flag Day, we have one of our own in-house veterans, Doris Zarafa, she works in our service program. She did a flag dedication down at Elm Drive, and I believe the fifth graders from Alden were also there, to experience that. And something I thought was super cool was, Albert, contacted NASCAR and is having, Doris is going to be recognized in the Tribute to Veterans NASCAR, a program that they do. And I believe that they're going to actually see the race. Yeah, so I think that's awesome. Her name will appear on, Brad Kozlowski's car during the, NASCAR Cup Series in July. So it's just a really nice thing that someone did for another staff member that I thought we would highlight. Because Doris is, so proud to be a veteran, and she loves to share with the students and staff around her, her experiences and her love of our country. So I just thought it was really nice that Albert did that for her. We are working through an education stimulus funding monitoring, period through the state of New York. So basically the federal government had allotted a whole bunch of different grants, post-COVID and for recovery, and we now have to answer for how we plan to use it. Is that how we used it? We have to justify all of our spending with that, and provide tons and tons of records. The questionnaire or the survey is 35 printed pages long with multiple questions. We need multiple documents for each of those questions. So it's a pretty arduous task. But we've been working through it, and I can't thank Ashley in the business office enough. She keeps impeccable records. Thankfully, some of this dates back to before Elliot and I were in these positions, so we just didn't have the working knowledge of some of those early recovery grants. So thank God for Ashley. And Dr. Watkins is going to be going to a grant conference this summer to learn about some of the competitive grants that are out there. So some of our grants that come down from the government based on our enrollment, we get a certain amount of money and we can utilize it for in any way that is applicable to the programming that they're targeting. So in some cases, it's Title I programming for students in certain socioeconomic groups and with certain identified needs. So there are specific grants for like our English language learners. There's specific grants for students with disabilities. And then there's these other grants that Amy found a workshop on. So she's going to be attending that to see if we can find even more money for like library media. There's safety grants. There's a whole bunch of different opportunities. So hopefully we can capitalize on some of that. Samantha has set up prepare training, which is a crisis management training for our administrative team for the summer. She and Mr. Cabello will also be turnkeying the therapeutic crisis intervention for our administration ahead of faculty, which will be trained. We did set dates for the training model on collaborative problem solving for the work of Dr. Ross Green, and we had 20 trainees, including 6 additional staff members for our Narcan training last week. So it was great to see. And I say additional, 6 additional, because we've had, I think, like 40 something people already trained on an every other year cycle. So we've been offering it every year. You need to re-up every 2 years. So we have about 40 people in district who were trained. We have 6 additional people. So it's a significant amount throughout our buildings. And then we had music in the parks concert, which ended up being music in the auditorium concert. But it certainly didn't take away from how awesome and talented our students are. And, you know, I can't thank the teachers enough for the effort that they put in. And I love to see that when one of them has a concert, the whole department is there to support that. So they really do work cohesively, and I love that. Tomorrow night, we have Beauty and the Beast Junior here at the middle school, and then we have Thursday night, middle school moving up, and Friday night, high school commencement up on the field. We hope, the weather's looking a little bit iffy, but we'll be watching that. And if there is a contingency plan that we have to employ, we will get information out to the community. But we are hoping that the weather will cooperate, and we will be outside as usual. And that's all I have.
And that concert was awesome.
Yeah.
That was just I never cease to amaze me at how good our students are. Incredible. Okay, very good.
Right?
I just want to, congratulate, I think that's great with the drive unification,
Yeah,
that I know you really, underlined that, but that's fantastic for Millbrook to kind of set the tone and have other schools, look up for that. I think that's really great.
and we actually, we're gonna have a third school from another district. I'm not sure what happened. They had called and they were planning to come, but they never made it that day. So, word travels fast. And I'm just happy we can also be a resource to other people. And some larger schools have this vision of like, I don't even know where we would begin to do this. And what we said was like, well, we didn't use the whole school, right? So it can just be like a field trip coming back, like your band goes out for a field trip and there's 100 kids that come back, because in a larger school, that's a reality, right? Just do it with them, and start. And I even said that, if it worked out, that we would send somebody down to help them for the first time, because that's the relationship that we want to have with our neighboring school districts, to be able to provide that support.
Maybe you should present it at NISBA.
Yeah, I will. Definitely. Sure.
All right. Safety committee?
So, as mentioned, we had our last AT meeting of the year. On June 5th, we also had training for each of our buildings, all of the faculty, where we went through what do they call it? Rapid fire tabletops. So it wasn't a full drawn out, full scale tabletop exercise, but it was like you had a scenario and then you had, certain time to think about it. And then it just became, what would you do in this scenario? And it was a lot of just brainstorming and going through, here are some things that we think. We have law enforcement there. We obviously had administrators there. We had lots of generated conversation around that, which was great. So we unpacked that at our safety team meeting, and then we also talked about the reunification that happened at Alden, which was also very successful, and that was assisted by the high school. And then we planned for the reunification that Alicia did just a couple days after that down at Elm Drive, which was assisted by the middle school.
All right, enrollment report is there. Any questions? The suspension incident report is there. Questions, comments? MEF report?
Sure, I'll keep it short because it's really the same as last time. We're just in full gear, getting ready for Taste of Millbrook on September 23rd. It's getting closer now. So sponsorships, auction items, we're in need of all of that. And yeah, speaking of the music department, jazz band might be a smaller group because it's going to be September, but jazz band, a choral group will perform, maybe even ukulele.
Yes.
Children.
Yes. Ms. Summers did say that the ukulele would make an appearance.
So it's very exciting. And did the letters go out to, did all the teachers get a chance?
Yeah, we had.
For the makeup, the giving tree?
When I
I'm
looked
calling it as
earlier,
well.
I think we had like 30 responses for
Okay.
Giving Tree.
Giving tree, it
Yeah.
is called that. Right, so at the event, there'll be this tree with leaves and different items. In addition to items up for auction, individuals attending can just grab a leaf and decide that they want to sponsor, yep, the item for that. For that teacher, so just kind of in full force for that, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
PTO?
Okay, so yes, we had 2 PTO reps attend that inspiring senior award ceremony. There was a competition for that 2 $1,000 scholarships. to submit essays that were anonymously read and anonymously voted on. And so $1,000 went to Olivia Lucal, surprisingly, and Lorraine Affinier, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So their essays were very impressive, as did everyone who submitted. We also had last week, which was on the day of the Lion King field trip, our Jessica Witkowski organized, helped set up and was present for the Elm Drive moving up ceremony. And then the Lion King field trip was successfully held last week. We only helped with a little bit of fundraising for that, but I thought I'd throw that in because it was a wonderful trip and I think everyone had a great time and it seemed really seamless in carrying that out.
Very cool, very cool. All right. Future agenda items, coming up. Next is, executive session. Do I have a motion to go to executive session?
So,
Go to second?
I'll second.
Just so everybody's aware on the phone and the audience, if we make decisions in executive session, we will have to take action in public session when we return, so, the meeting's not over. All right? With that, all in favor?
Aye.